a few weeks ago, I compared the Sony A7 III versus the A7 IV for both photo and video, and you asked me if I could also compare the Sony A7C versus the A7 IV, so that's exactly what we're doing in today's video. Let's start off with the build of both cameras. The A7C is a small, full-frame body, which makes it a great camera if you want something light and easy to carry around. Due to its size, it can make it a little uncomfortable to hold, especially compared to the A7 IV that has a much fuller grip. If I know I'm going to be using a camera for photography for a few hours straight, I would opt for the A7 IV for that reason. Otherwise, the A7C is great for shorter photo shoot days or when you're traveling, as you're most likely taking a few photos here and there throughout the day, so you won't feel that grip as much in those situations. Again, due to its smaller size, the A7C has less buttons as well. Compared to the A7 IV, the A7C is missing a second dial, C1, C2, C3, and the AEL button, and the joystick. I have found a way to have all the shortcuts I need at my fingertips with the A7C though, so I don't find the missing buttons a huge deal for me personally. I'll leave my setup videos for both camera bodies in the description if you wanted to get some ideas on what shortcuts you can use for the A7C and the A7 IV. Both camera bodies use the same battery and they both have a flippy screen. One last major difference between the camera bodies is that the A7 IV has dual card slots compared to the A7C, which only has one card slot. The single card slot of the A7C is something that stops me from using this camera in a professional setting as an A camera. Any client work I have, I will personally always choose to use the camera with dual card slots so I can simultaneously record the photos and videos I'm taking for an instant backup. So we're going to take some photos on a tripod with both camera bodies. I currently have the GM 85mm f1.4, and look how incredible this location is. We're going to have so many cool shots to look at, and we'll take a look at them in Lightroom side by side. In terms of photography, the A7C has an electronic first curtain shutter with no option to select mechanical shutter full time. So this is fine if you're shooting outdoors only, but you may have some issues with artificial lighting or third-party flashes, and this is another reason why I wouldn't be able to use this as my main camera for, say, wedding photography. On the A7 IV, you have the option to shoot with the electronic or mechanical shutter. With the A7C, we can also only go up to a maximum shutter speed of 1/4000 compared to the A7 IV of 1/8000. You do have some ways around this. You can shoot with a slower aperture to be able to capture photos in brighter light, or you can make use of ND filters as well. Here's an underexposed photo that I took on both camera bodies in a very high contrast situation. We have the A7C to the left and the A7 IV to the right. I'm going to start off by bringing up the shutters. The A7C is a 24 megapixel camera versus the A7 IV, which is a 33 megapixel camera. So if I zoom into this same spot in the tree and bring it nice and close together, you can see that extra resolution we have in the A7 IV. The tree trunk is just a little bit bigger compared to the A7C file. And as you can see, the shadow recovery on both files is really good, but we do have a little extra detail here in the darker parts of the photo. Next, I'm going to bring the highlights to -100, and here I actually think the A7C did a better job at recovering the highlights. Again, this is not a scientific photo comparison. We do have the clouds rolling around in the sky, so something could have changed in between the two photos that I took. I would have to bring down the exposure of the A7 IV file to get it to match with the A7C. So very similarly to my A7 III versus A7 IV comparison video, the A7C and the A7 IV both have really great files coming out of them that are very recoverable in both the shadows and the highlights. So in a real world setting, you can get photos that look great from both camera bodies. The Sony A7C features IAF for humans in stills and video mode, and animal IAF in stills, and recently with a firmware update for video too. The only extra feature the A7 IV has is bird IAF in stills and video. However, I don't think this is a drawback for the A7C since it also has subject tracking, so you can use that to keep track of the birds in either photo or video mode. I find that both cameras keep up really well with a moving subject, as you can see in these examples. I used both the A7C and the A7IV with IAF, a wide focus area, and subject shift sensitivity set to 1, locked on. Okay, so let's take a look at 4K video. I filmed the same shots on both cameras with the same lens and the same settings. The A7C only films in 24, 25 or 30p 4K compared to the A7IV that films in 24, 25, 30p 4K and 50 or 60p 4K with an S35 crop. So if you want to film any 50 or 60p footage on the A7C for slow-mo, you can only do that in 1080p. The A7C uses 420 8-bit, while the A7IV has the option of using 420 8-bit and 422 10-bit. Looking at the standard picture profile video footage, which is unedited, both shots look extremely similar in terms of tone and color. In some high contrast settings, you can see that the A7IV has slightly better dynamic range than the A7C, but overall they both look really good. The 422 10-bit files of the A7IV also come in more handy when shooting in S-Log. I was able to recover more highlights and shadows in the A7IV files compared to the A7C. But again, I am happy with what the video footage looks like from both cameras. Let me know what you think in the comments. Since these are both hybrid cameras for both photo and video, and they're very based around content creation, I have to do some vlogging and show you guys a video comparison as well. Got Dan in the background filming some BTS. So I'm currently on the Sony A7C and I'm using the G20mm f1.8, which is a lens that I normally like to use for vlogging. I'm currently filming in 4K 25p and I have my picture profile off as well, so we can just get a feel for what that looks like, and I'll pace around a little bit so we can compare the footage. I'm currently relying on IAF to keep the focus on me. I have my subject shift sensitivity set to 1, which is locked on. So if I bring Dan into the shot, it should stay in focus on me. And then I usually like to just tap on the screen for subject tracking if I want it to focus on something else. And then I'll just tap on myself again to keep it back in focus on me. And now I'm vlogging on the Sony A7IV. It got a little bit darker, so my ISO is at 400 compared to 320 on the A7C. But I'm also using the G20 f1.8 and I have all the same settings that I was using before as well. So I'm filming in 4K 25p with my picture profile off. I noticed with the same white balance and no white balance fine adjustment, the A7IV looks greener in the midtones, especially when it was overcast in those vlogging shots. I left the A7C as is and fine adjusted the A7IV more into the pinks for a comparison. And I've just switched my picture profile over to Cinetone, which is something that we can't do with the A7C. I do like having this option if the video that I'm recording, I want it to look a bit more subtle, or I want the option to kind of leave the footage as is, or I can color grade it a little bit more if I like as well. It's kind of like that in between standard and S-Log, which I really like what it looks like. So I'll get Dan in the background of some of these shots as well. I've got, again, the subject shift sensitivity set to 1, which is locked on, so it should prioritize focusing on me. And then if I want it to focus on Dan, I can just tap to focus and then focus back on me. So we're gonna do an audio check. As a reference, this is what my lav mic sounds like. Now I'm gonna switch to the internal audio of the A7C. So this is what that camera sounds like if you have no microphone attached to it. And this is what the Sony A7IV internal microphone sounds like. I never use the internal microphone of a camera. I only use it for sync, but I thought it would be handy to show you guys what it sounds like. I've got this weird angle so I can do a rolling shutter test. Let's go. It's too much. Oh, okay.
Now what's that?
As a rolling shutter reference, I'm also using the A7S3 as well. It's time to get dizzy. Now we have an IBIS test, so I'm on the A7C with steady shot off, and I'll try to walk as good as possible, but I don't know. My hands are a bit shaky sometimes when I'm holding the camera, and the road is a little bit bumpy as well, so we'll see what that looks like. And finally, I'm on the A7IV with active steady shot switched on, which causes a slight crop in the image. So I'm going to try and hold it at the same place as the other shots so we can see the difference. While I think both cameras are able to do a great job out on location, there are a few different reasons as to why you would be purchasing each of these. I find that the A7IV is definitely a professional camera that you should get if you are doing or you're planning on doing client work full time. You have the dual card slots, ability to choose between electronic or mechanical shutter. We have the newer Sony sensor, slightly more dynamic range. We have more buttons to customize for shortcuts and a fuller grip to make it more comfortable for long days of shooting. On the other hand, I would opt for the A7C if I wanted a camera to travel with, to do some content creation with, to have an easy to carry personal camera, a camera for street photography, and shorter days of shooting. I like that even with the A7C being smaller and lighter than the A7IV, it does still keep up in terms of photo and video quality for general use. But that is all I have for today's video. I'd love to know what you think of the differences down in the comments below as well. But as always, thank you so much for watching. I make new videos every single week, so I will see you all next time. Bye.